Distractions are nice sometimes, but rarely are they useful for anything more than going temporarily brain dead, whether willingly or not. Have you ever found something that should have been front page mainstream media news that simply got buried or never reported at all? It happens several times a day in my world. And back in late July, while everyone was watching the debt ceiling BS, Obama officially by executive order declared a national emergency. Again. Um, some of you may swear that we were already in a state of emergency. Yes, but you must understand the process to appreciate this even more. According to the National Emergencies Act, NEA, any national emergency declared by the President and not otherwise previously terminated shall terminate on the anniversary of the declaration of that emergency unless the President publishes in the Federal Register and transmits to Congress a notice stating that said emergency is to continue in effect after said anniversary date within the 90-day period prior to each anniversary date. So, yes, we were in a state of emergency because he'd already put us in a state of emergency the year before that and the year before that and so on, okay? Some of you may know about this particular one already but have written it off because of careful detail in specific language in this executive order relating to foreign entities, or because it's just another in a long line of declarations of national emergency. The majority, however, don't realize it happened at all because they either weren't looking for it or weren't looking hard enough. I mean, after all, the mainstream media never popped a peep about this declaration. In fact, the title of this executive order has nothing to do with any hint at any type of emergency. So, what it comes down to is on July 20th of 2011, Obama sent a formal message to the Federal Register that he was continuing the national emergency, which was still in effect regarding Liberia from last year. So he was extending it beyond July 22nd, 2011 of this year. And before the Liberia one, you might remember that he had declared a state of emergency regarding the swine flu. They did talk a little bit about that on the news and people laughed it off. Not many of us laughed that off. Anyway, 3 days later, on July 25th, 2011, he signed and issued a new declaration of national emergency by executive order. The title, though? Blocking Property of Transnational Criminal Organizations. Really? How many people went and looked at that and said, oh my God, that's his declaration of national emergency? And you have to read into it to find out that the declaration of national emergency is even in there, okay? You know, it starts out, by the authority vested in me as President by the Constitution and laws of the United States of America. I won't even editorialize on that right now. Including the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA, the National Emergencies Act, and Section 301 of Title III United States Code, blah, blah, blah. I find that the activities of significant transnational criminal organizations have reached such scope and gravity that they threaten the stability of international political and economic systems, and so on and so on. I therefore determine that significant transnational criminal organizations constitute an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security, foreign policy, and economy of the United States, and hereby declare a national emergency to deal with that threat. Okay? So you got to read way down in there to even find that that's in it. Continued into Section 4. For those persons whose property and interests in property are blocked pursuant to this order, who might have a constitutional presence in the United States, I find that because of the ability to transfer funds or other assets instantaneously, prior notice to such persons of measures to be taken pursuant to this order would render these measures ineffectual. I therefore determine that for these measures to be effective in addressing the national emergency declared in this order, there need be no prior notice of a listing or a determination made pursuant to the Section 1 of this order. And Section 1 basically dealt with taking people's property away, seizing property, and so on and so forth. Those of you who have studied such orders will note that Bill Clinton and G.W. Bush have used the exact same language as in that section. That doesn't make it okay then, and it certainly doesn't make it okay now. They have all signed under oath to the Constitution, but in their own interests, that the Constitution could potentially get in their way, have declared here that they have and will continue to walk all over it. Add to that another repeat action, and Obama's been doing this a lot more and more. But in this particular one, just listen. In Section 5, he has given Timothy Geithner, Eric Holder, and Hillary Clinton the powers of the President as may be necessary to carry out the purpose of several orders. Got that? They have the powers of the President to do what they need to as he directs them. We're not going to know what that is before it happens, obviously. And the Secretary of the Treasury may redelegate any of these functions to other officers and agencies of the United States government. Well, here, Timothy Geithner, you have some presidential powers now, and here, you can go ahead and give those powers to other people too, and we don't have to announce it or do anything. Really? Really? Is this safe? Is this how a constitutional government works? This power can be given because of the IEEPA, or International Emergency Economic Powers Act. It will allow Geithner, Holder, and Clinton the powers to regulate any and all commerce due to this cited foreign threat. Not just to deal with the cited foreign threat, but due to the cited foreign threat. You have to understand the difference there. That's why the reason had to come from an outside threat, but that doesn't mean that it can't or won't affect you. And this is a cycle. Presidents have been overstepping their constitutional limitations going way back, and the majority of national emergencies which have been declared have been done to fulfill a requirement or meet a loophole so that Congress would not be able to override a single act or decision that each of those presidents would coincidentally end up making during that period. Premeditation? Now, there is some debate whether we have actually been in a state of national emergency since 1994 or since 2001, and that is neither here nor there. They have continued to be renewed annually, just with little or no recognition. Now, 13-24 of September 23, 2011 was also known and titled Blocking Property and Prohibiting Transactions with Persons Who Commit, Threaten to Commit, or Support Terrorism. That's what the Declaration of National Emergency came under. We knew that we were in a state of national emergency then. They talked about it. It was obvious with everything that was going on that, that was probably going to just happen. But while their goal of power is met, the actual name and excuse keeps changing. Perhaps so Congress doesn't bother to counter it, so the people don't catch on. It's gone on for the most part completely overlooked for a really long time. The major dangers posed by this declaration of national emergency are many, including that other executive orders from presidents relating to emergency situations can be implemented without warning. all of a patriot's worst nightmares could come true, right down to martial law, and the Department of Homeland Security is taking total control of our nation, even suspending temporarily our entire constitutional form of government by the push of a hidden button behind the curtain. No warning. Let's see, executive orders. 10995 provides for the takeover of the communications media. 10997 provides for the takeover of all electric, power, petroleum, gas, fuels, and minerals. 10988 provides for the takeover of food resources and farms. 10999 provides for the takeover of all modes of transportation, controls of highways, seaports, etc. 11,000 provides for mobilization of all civilians into work brigades under the government's supervision. 11,001 provides for government takeover of all health, education, and welfare functions. Well, they're pretty much already doing that anyway, aren't they? 11,002 designates the Postmaster General to operate a national registration of all persons. 11,003 provides for the government to take over airports and aircraft. 11,004 provides for the Housing and Finance Authority to relocate communities. Yes, relocate communities, designate areas to be abandoned, and establish new locations for populations. Executive Order 11,005 provides for the government to take over railroads, inland waterways, and public storage facilities. And those are just some of them. And that's only just part of the concern. There's so much going on all at once. You know, you can't tell me that you haven't seen our rights being quashed and felt this nation falling apart. You know, if not, then you're a zombie living in La La Land, and it's time to wake up, people. I'm not saying the worst will happen. I am saying it can happen without warning, and this just provides for it even more. It could strike one region at a time or all at once. And with Agenda 21 so far implemented, the motive to finish it off grows greater and greater with each new piece of regulation, each new passing day. The people protesting in this Occupy Wall Street setup, well, if they are determined to be there, and I certainly don't agree with and won't promote it, but if you don't believe those of us who have presented you with the facts that this is not a good thing to be involved in, then please, for everyone else's sake, at least remain peaceful and vigilant.